Exchange TV, Ignite Excellence Foundation initiative, in support of the African Businesswomen Connected Summit taking place in Ethiopia in 2013. The Wisdom Exchange is a resource for African women to learn, lead, and succeed in life, business, and community. Is a forum women of all disciplines will be inspired by the achievements of African women in business, politics, education, and philanthropy. These are the women that are the change agents of African communities, companies, country, and continent. They will inspire us to stretch our vision of what we can do and what we can be. New interviews and expert perspective blogs will be updated regularly with insights of women leaders of today for tomorrow. Hello, my name is Suzanne F Stevens, and I am the producer and host of Wisdom Exchange TV. Founder of the Ignite Excellence Foundation, which mandate is leadership, advocacy, and education. And our vision is to inspire, invest, and develop women in emerging countries. As an inspirational speaker, a living coach, and a business leadership and sales trainer, I've had the pleasure of working with women like the woman we're about to interview today. We are in Nairobi, Kenya, and we're interviewing a woman today who was from Kenya but now lives in Malawi. Her name is Katherine Ichoya. Katherine is the Executive Director of FEMCOM. The main objective of FEMCOM is to promote programs that integrate women into trade and development activities in the region, in particular in the fields of agriculture, industry, trade, services, fishing, mining, energy, transport, communications, and natural resources. FEMCOM is the Federation of National Association of Women in Business in Eastern and Southern Africa. It was founded on the idea that the region's economic integration cannot be seen to have successfully succeeded if women were not a key component of that success. Katherine came from COMESA, which COMESA is the common market for Eastern and Southern Africa, and FEMCOM is an institution of COMESA. Katherine was one of the two founding ladies of COMESA Gender Policy. So we look forward to hearing her perspective today. Let's welcome Katherine Ichoya. It's great to finally meet you, and thank you for coming to Africa International University for your interview.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here, and I was looking forward to meeting you.
Wonderful. I've heard lots about you, so it's great. So what was the catalyst for pursuing a career in gender equality?
One was because I felt that there was a calling for me to support the women's cause. Mm-hmm. As an activist in credit, gender, and also leadership skills. Mm-hmm. So when I started this when I was in the university, and I felt that it was very important for me to think of making a difference. First, because my mother was a very aggressive woman, and I felt that there was a need for us to support some of those aggressive women, like from the rural areas, because she was not able to speak English, but I saw the leadership skills in her, and I thought that I needed to emulate it and also support the upcoming women by actually playing that leadership role at whatever level I was in.
So what continues to motivate you down this path of gender equality?
I think what continues to really inspire me is because I have seen the impact of the work that we have been doing. One, when I joined the National Bank of Kenya, and I started working as a banker, I realized that there was a gap. I wasn't getting satisfied, like going to work in a bank when I really could see that our women were not benefiting. Mm. And that led me to beginning to work with women's groups through the Business and Professional Women's Club. So I benefited a lot from interacting and networking with our elder women who are in the leadership at that material time, because that gave me an opportunity to use them as a role model, at the same time beginning to support the activities that were being done at the rural level. I want to give you a good example which makes me feel very good. What happened when I was in the National Bank of Kenya is we agreed with the Women, Business and Professional Women's Club, that there was a need for us to help our Maasai women, the women who were selling the beads.
Yes, know them well.
Because they would come from very, very far, walking. At that material time, they would go near the market and put their products down on the floor. And they would just sell maybe to a few. They were just targeting the tourists. But you could see the potential they had. So our women felt that it was very important for us to begin to support our women, especially Maasai women who were coming from the rural areas. Fortunate for me, because I was in the bank called National Bank of Kenya, I was given an opportunity to go and open a branch near the Maasai land. And so I was able to interact with some of these women. And through Business and Professional Women's Club, with the support of and guidance and advice again from our women leaders at the material time, one of whom today is a minister, whom I respect very much. In fact, Minister Bedmo, at that time, she had a shop at the Intercontinental Hotel. And she actually created a room for the women to be bringing some of their products. What she did was, there was a tourist company. The women now would come like twice a week. When the tourists are coming from the field, from touring, so that they will be preparing to go back home, then they would be able to buy their products from there. So what I saw for me was that you are creating an environment, a marketing environment for them to begin to sell their products. The reason why I'm talking about this is because today, as we speak, out of some of those issues or activities between us, the few women who are doing that, we do have what we call a Maasai market, which has expanded. And I hope you have an opportunity on Saturday, one of these Saturdays.
I have been to the Maasai market.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This was the concept.
Yes.
So when you see the impact of some of the work that our women started and we pushed it, and from my banking point of view, I was able to work very closely with the women who started selling the Kenyan basket, the kiondo.
Yes.
Supporting them to be able to export by ensuring that they were able to get loans. And I worked with a few women who really excelled in that.
Wonderful.
So that makes me feel very good.
So you can see that development, something you've done that has worked. Now as the executive director of FEMCOM, what sort of significant impact have you seen change since you've been with FEMCOM for 2 years, correct?
I've been with FEMCOM for 2 years.
Okay, since you started, where's the motivation to continue there?
I was lucky because even as I joined COMESA as a regional economic community, I saw the huge market. In COMESA, we are talking about 19 member states. So I am seeing this as an opportune moment for women to begin to trade in the region among each other. I'll give you a good example. Yesterday, I was discussing with some of the ladies from Malawi who are in the grain industry. There is hunger here in Kenya, in some of our areas. And Kenya is buying maize. A practical example is this lady who is the head of the association that is dealing with the maize in Malawi, holding discussions with the women here. So when you begin to see the role of women in beginning to address the issues of food security at a higher level, that is good. Because what it means is that through FEMCOM, we can link up our women in the region at different levels using different products. I'm just giving maize as one of the examples. It could be seeds, it could be something else. It could be groundnuts, it could be soya bean, because Malawi is producing a lot of cashew nuts, they are producing a lot of soya beans that can be bought by the women here. And how do they do that? They will require an environment or a structure like FEMCOM for them to be able to see the business. So in the future, I am seeing FEMCOM, Federation of National Association of Women in Business, that is a COMESA institution, playing a critical role in terms of facilitating trade, ensuring that it's a networking forum for the women to communicate, especially if we come up with a very good system where the women can be able to communicate through the internet.
Which becomes very important. Now,
Yeah.
who do you rely on at FEMCOM? Who are the people that support you?
The beauty with FEMCOM is that each member state of COMESA has got a FEMCOM focal point.
Excellent.
When FEMCOM was being started, they went and identified each umbrella national association of women in business, like in Kenya, the Federation of Women Entrepreneurs in Kenya, umbrella that has various associations of women who are dealing in business in various sectors. So you have women who are in the agri-businesses, you have women who are in the handicraft, you have women who are in the business industry, like tourism, eco-tourism, you have all those. And so the key point is, how do we facilitate the linkages at the regional level? That's where the regional niche of FEMCOM comes from. And then when you look at this huge market, you are beginning to tell, again, the women of the continent that they may not necessarily have to start going to Dubai, going to China. They can begin to work, to do business with their neighbors. And this is why one of our key areas of focus is to promote women in the cross-border trade.
Absolutely.
That is critical. One way, by ensuring that through the FEMCOM focal points, we are lobbying the government to make sure that our women are not harassed at the border. That the government can also work with the private sector, promoting private sector public partnerships, where we can all work together to ensure that we create safe and secure environment for our women who probably will be coming from Uganda and Kenya. So when they meet at the border, at least there's somewhere where some of our women with the children can be able to keep their children, can be able to go to clean toilets. In fact, we were just discussing the other day with the Kenyan women business round, telling the Kenyan women in business, hey, we may even think of having these mobile toilets at the border. And then we were saying, what if that is going to be the case? Some of us who are privileged enough to be good business, big business women, or women who have some money, kind of, through corporate social responsibility, it doesn't mean that it is going to begin in the big companies. No. Even as women who have something small, we can contribute.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you that question again. Who supports you?
Well, my husband has been extremely supportive from a household point of view. My family has been extremely supportive, because sometimes when you don't have a family that supports you, as a woman, you cannot be able to move, because you may move from 2 steps, somebody pulls your skirt, come back, you're not supposed to be doing this. So partnership that I have with my husband and my family has been extremely important to me, and also my family. That's right.
So what do you find the most rewarding element of your career? What's the absolute most rewarding element of your career?
The most rewarding one is the difference that we are making. The leadership we are providing. It is not easy for most of us who, for example, I have to live outside the country when I want to be in my home. And sometimes I have to leave my husband now, because right now we are busy ensuring that we are taking care of our retirement. We are building some apartments. And so I have to live alone. It's a lonely life sometimes. it's lonely, there's no question about it. But one has to realize that at some stage you have to give back to the society what the society has given you. And for that, you actually persevere. I share a lot with my women in the region, by the way, because I have a very good network, even international. And the women will tell you, you know, that they feel like that they're denying their families the time to be with them. But then when you see what you are doing in the region, you tell yourself, Catherine, you just hang on there and make sure that you push ahead. But then even as we push ahead, we are also fighting hard to build a critical mass of the youth, the younger women, who will take over from us, so that we can hand over the torch to our women.
So what is, now you mentioned a challenge there, but what is the biggest challenge in your career to achieve the objective of FEMCOM?
The biggest achievement, the biggest challenge that I have gone through is that one, that's a very good question. Here I am in charge of the Women in Business constituency. It's a huge constituency. They are called Women in Business. But strictly speaking, the terminology of women in business sounds like they already have the money. But we are talking about small, medium enterprises, women who are coming from up. Because when you are talking about a woman in business, the woman in business who is selling, a woman who is selling in the market is a woman in business. Sometimes, because I have been able as a banker to evaluate some of these businesses, you find that they actually non-starters. Sometimes you go in the morning, you just do your business, it is just enough for your stomach, the profit margin is so small that you cannot be able to advance yourself. So sometimes you become a busybody. There are those women I know for sure in business that are actually busybodies, just running up and down, but at the end of the day, if you look at the balance sheet, they are not able to make ends meet. This is why we are coming in to say we need to support them with the training packages that will help them to be able to add value to what they are doing. So for now in Africa, we are talking value addition. We are saying if it's the women who are selling what we call sukuma wiki, this is kale, for instance, what is it that they can be able to do if they met as groups to see how they can add value by processing that and putting it in the departmental stores? Those are the challenges for the continent, because there is a lot of post-harvest issues to do with the food. If you go to our markets, you'll be able to see. And one of the products that I have always looked at across the board in the region, which I have seen, is tomatoes. You find tomatoes, they are all over. And yet you realize that tomato paste, the demand for tomato paste in the world is out of, it's very high. But then our women are struggling, a few were putting the tomatoes there, but then when you look at the profit margin, it's not there. So collectively, we are hoping that through FEMCOM, and we are doing this through COMESA, we really are going to do this, and we already have begun to do this, to say, let us begin to assist our women to establish business incubators.
So it's sort of, it's just so I understand, so the big challenge is women that are just, we call them mom and pops.
Yeah.
They're just making it by,
Yeah.
is to actually make profit.
Exactly.
Now, without taking this too far down this, it begs the question, do they really want to make profit?
They do, but sometimes they don't know. This is where we, who have that knowledge, like I'm coming from the banking sector,
right,
should come in and begin to tell them, this is how you can do it. And I want to give you an example, the how to do it. Technologies. If we can, for instance, use institutions like we have in Kenya, like the Jomo Kenyatta Institute of Technology, and many other institutions of technology, by just coming up with affordable technologies that can help our women to be able to add value to certain products, the foodstuffs that they are dealing with, that is crucial. And I can tell you this works because it is working in other countries. For instance, in Sudan, what I noticed is that they take the tomatoes and they cut them and they dry them in the sun because it's dry. That's food preservation. If we can train them to know how to come up maybe with affordable, easily shared information about the normal issue of food preservation. That's knowledge. That's knowledge. And I wanted to tell you something about Africa, which is not in most of the continents. One of the greatest assets that the continent has is the women's groups infrastructure. Because traditionally, women have always worked together to helping one another, such that if one woman has given birth, the other women will take care of the tilling of the land. That is a traditional concept that we should nurture culturally, because if it can be commercialized, you can see the value. Yes.
Katherine, in your role as the executive director at FEMCOM, that must be a lot of responsibility. Can you tell us about the personal sense that you feel that responsibility?
I think as a woman, as the CEO of a COMESA institution, most of the CEOs of the other COMESA institutions are men. So I feel as a woman that I have a double responsibility to prove that women can deliver. That's a challenge. And not only for the women, for the region, but also to demonstrate that when women have been given a position of leadership, they can work even better than the men. That is something that I can share with you.
That's a lot of responsibility.
It's a lot of responsibility.
So how do you personally remove yourself from that? How do you shut down and just relax?
What I do is, first and foremost, I really network. I like to learn. I like to work with mentors. And I like to share my experiences with the other women who are in my position. I have very good friends whom I call when I feel that I need help in the region and the various positions. So I have a network, support system that helps me to move on, because they have shared with me and I know that they have been in that position. And because when we were formulating the COMESA gender policy, I learned a lot from the women, and I realized that alone I cannot be able to move forward. So we need in the region backup of somebody you can quickly call in your position to say, hey, this is how I feel. I feel low today. How do you? That is one of the support systems that I would recommend that we all take up.
So I can call you.
You can call. And I also do have women in politics that are my role models. And occasionally, for instance, when I come here, I sit down and consult them. We also do have women with extreme wisdom, like my mother. They may not be able to know how to speak or write, but there are times you just want to sit down with these women leaders, you know, in church, because I go to church a lot. I just sit down with them and I listen. The confidence they have, even without being in these positions, gives us that, it energizes and gives us the confidence to move ahead. That is something that I have used in the past. Even when I want to go down, I feel like, no, you can't give up. Move on.
So what is the most significant decision you made in your career to date?
The significant decision I've made in my career is, I feel very happy that I was involved in the formulation of the COMESA gender policy. That's one. Because I really wanted to make a difference in the area of policy. Make sure there's an instrument that is there, protocol that can be used, and having participated the African Union lobbying process for the African Union gender parity, we feel good as the African women, there's no question about it, that at least we can talk about gender parity in the continent. That is critical because we can use it to hold leaders accountable for what they need to deliver. In fact, I feel very good equally so because, for instance, in Kenya, which is my country, we have a constitution. And so we have this policy instruments that we can be able to work with. Although I know that the most difficult thing to do is to implement some of these policies. There are very many challenges. But because we have gone through all this process, when we go back to our respective areas where we now want to support the women to be able to say, hey, there is a constitution here, this is how do we go about it. We have the experience. So we'll be able to do that. We'll work together, not as me, but as a team.
So a lot of that is what you've achieved, which is fantastic. But if you were to look back, you came from banking, okay, you went to COMESA, you went to FEMCOM. What would be the one decision that you made that you would recommend to other women or that really impacted your career and development?
Let me put it this way. I got a lot of support. To be honest, I was very much encouraged. When I left Harvard, I wasn't sure of what to do. And I got a lot of support from the current president of Liberia, President Ellen Johnson, whom I just met about a month ago when I was in Monrovia. And just shaking her hand just made me feel like she was telling me, go ahead, move on. I also got a lot of support from women who are working with the World Bank. I have a very dear friend who was working with ILO, who was also my partner, because we had established a consultancy firm in Washington, D.C. after I finished Harvard, when I wasn't sure what to do. And I was so scared, even when they were saying, let's do something. I was scared when I was going to sign the papers in Washington, D.C. I was actually crying from Boston, because I took a train to Washington, D.C. I was shaking and praying to my God to say, am I sure? But they gave me the confidence. So for me, one of the things I really want to do in the future is to work even with the youth, to give them the reassurance that I got. Because we have a lot of young women, and even women for that matter, who have all the skills, but there is that fear. There is the fear of, oh, can I make it? Can I make it? That reassurance and being able to have the confidence is very, very critical.
Now, why did you go to school in the States?
I went to school in the States first and foremost because I had done a course with the USID. And I had been exposed to when I was in National Bank of Kenya, and I really thank them because actually that's when I did a leadership course. I did it. I went to Golden Bethel, that is in Delaware, or a course which was on women entrepreneurs. I was exposed to the World Bank. I was exposed to the banks in Boston, for instance, and I began to realize, and this is why exposure is crucial, that I was limiting myself. So by the time I came back here to the bank, I was like, hey, I don't think I want to be just here as a bank manager. I think there are better opportunities out there. So that exposure really made a difference to me.
Now, you've obviously had a lot of success, but with every success comes things that don't go right. Call it failure or something you've tried that did not work in your career. Is there something, either be it at FEMCOM, COMESA, or as bank manager, that you have done that really just did not work effectively for you?
Yes. I tell you, that's a very good question. Before we came up with the COMESA gender policy, it was terrible. It was terrible because here I am. When I joined COMESA, I was expecting to just swim into, this regional organization and just start earning money and talking, but that is not it. Because people come from very different backgrounds, very, very different backgrounds. And the biggest challenge then was to begin to think that I was going to convert the men to think the way I was thinking. That was a non-starter. I went through stress. I almost gave up. Again, here I have a position. The people who helped me, this is what I'm saying, women are crucial. Because the women said, Catherine, we are not giving up. We must forge ahead. And there's many years. So you wake up in the morning and you are going through so much stress, but you are pushing on to this thing. We don't know if you're going to achieve or not. It's been very difficult, and not only for me, but for most of the ladies who have been trying to change, to bring change into systems that do not believe they should change. It's been very difficult.
So how did you deal with it?
Crying. By the way, you cry a lot, and I prayed a lot, and you quarrel. Of course, you confront people, and then you are accused of confronting. As an African woman, it's like it is construed to me that you have no respect. When you say, "Are you sure you should be telling me this? You shouldn't." It wasn't easy. Because you are misunderstood. Misunderstood because sometimes in those boardrooms you are supposed to be, you are fine. But deep inside you didn't have the same credentials. After all, you are going to the same universities anyway. But when it comes to you being a woman, it is expected of you by the society or by the mindset that is there that you are supposed to be, not asking certain questions. It's been very difficult, by the way.
So what have you learned about yourself through that process?
To manage insanity. I tell you, management of insanity has been to manage insanity.
Okay.
I have learned to manage insanity.
Yeah.
Patience pays. Patience has been something of a virtue to me. I have learned that.
So when you have these initiatives, how do you reflect on if they were successful or not? How do you measure success, if you will?
Well, for instance, in the case of the COMESA gender policy, when we delivered that policy to the heads of states, because the meeting was in Addis Ababa, and it was approved by the 19 COMESA member states, is a COMESA gender policy. That to me was a key achievement. Because I know that forever and ever it is going to be used to hold the governments accountable. Whether I'm there tomorrow or not, it's a document that is going to remain there. And then I remember immediately after that, there was an ambassador from African Union who came and asked me, Catherine, can you share this policy with African Union? Because they had not yet come up with their gender policy, and I was very happy to do that. So I became part and parcel of some of those regional economic communities, gender experts that were involved in the whole process of coming up with an African Union gender policy as a regional economic grouping. That to me was a key achievement.
So it almost sounds too, what you're saying is you measure success when you're removed from it and it still lives, whatever you did.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's the legacy.
Yeah.
That's the legacy, being associated with success that is going to benefit everyone forever. It's just like what happened when the British came here. They left structures of governance. These structures are going on. We individuals will go, but the legacy will continue. I think to me that is critical. And this is the biggest challenge that now I have. When I was requested to go and assist with the establishment of a COMESA FEMCOM, which is a COMESA institution, which was also a directive of the heads of state, it's another challenge. What do I do to make sure that we put in the right structures for this institution? Institutional building is an art itself. It's so difficult. But I'm saying, I cannot afford to fail. I just want to make sure that at least that process, it's there, so that when somebody else comes, can be able to find some institutional memory there in place, and then carry forward. And I think this is really what we are there for. For me, I have done my job.
So, during that time, you must have done, I'm going to call this our edginess segment.
Yes.
You must have done something that made you uncomfortable. But you needed to do it in order to achieve your objective. What would that be that would have made you uncomfortable, but because you did it, you achieved your objective?
Well, it's confronting the leadership. You know, because there are times literally just saying, for instance, you go, you are not given any budget or adequate budget, and you know you cannot be able to achieve. You have to confront it. It is very uncomfortable when you are actually sticking out to just say what you have to say, because you know it is not good for them, but for you, it has to happen. Secondly, the other thing which is, and is still bothering me is that you still are working with some of our women friends who are used to, and I will just call it that, to dependency syndrome. Because you are working with women in business, but for them, when we started, for instance, the FEMCOM, for them, they started with an NGO mentality. Because that's what happened. That was the biggest challenge actually of FEMCOM. During the time that FEMCOM was being constituted, that is the time that most of the women's business associations or NGOs were being started. So there was that which I call women in business approach, women in development approach, vis-a-vis the private sector approach. That's a critical challenge that I'm going through right now. How do I have to make sure that I remind my colleagues who are calling themselves women in business that FEMCOM is not an NGO. It is a private sector structure, and it has to have corporate sector approach. That to me is becoming such a challenge, because I don't believe, quite honestly, that we should continue promoting this dependency syndrome. Because if we do, then we cannot call ourselves business women.
We could have a very long conversation about the dependency syndrome, because we'll have that at another time, because you're absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. We have to survive on our own merits.
That's right.
And be successful and learn how to be successful on our own merits and not look for handouts, or it's, hand up, not hand out.
That's right.
So you obviously have a lot of gifts that make you successful. What would be some of the gifts, the natural attributes that you have that have really helped with your progression and success in your career?
I think one of the things I have is I have a very good heart. I love people. I just love people, and I love making friends, and I don't like to succeed alone. I like to carry people along with me, but at the same time, you can get very hurt. Because where you want to go, whether you're working with your relatives or whoever, you get hurt because you mean well, you're positive, but then some people may not be like that. But that's life. Again, I say you manage insanity and you move on.
So you said learning patience earlier on, and liking people, and so people will lobby around you. Is there any other gifts that
Yes, I do. I'm a person of integrity. I am a person of integrity. I hate anything that I would ever do that would be associated with corruption. I don't like it. I don't like it, and so it's a challenge when you are sometimes working with people who want to do shortcuts. And women also do that. People don't like it when you're just too open. That's another weakness. I'm very open. Maybe I guess I need some training to know how to deal with people, so that I just don't speak out, because sometimes you're hurting people. And sometimes even I have been told, even in in my organization that you are a politician, so, but it's okay because I also did political science. So sometimes I don't know where to draw the line. Yeah, but that's it.
It's hard to be anybody but yourself, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult. So what would be the most significant thing that happened for or to you to achieve your career accomplishments?
I think I also got a lot of support from the COMESA leadership. Honestly, I did, and I really applaud them because the COMESA leadership, I'll tell you why. Because every time I would go to them and say, please give me an opportunity to do this, they told me, go ahead. I want to give you an example. We used to go to the summits, COMESA summits, and I realized that the first ladies, every time we went there, they didn't have a role to play. And I remember my first Secretary General of COMESA. I went to him and I said, and I respect him a lot, Mr. Mocha is now the Deputy African Union. I said, you know what, can you give me an opportunity to see how we can be able to work with the first ladies so that they can assist us with advocacy activities? He said, yes, try it, go ahead. And we constituted a COMESA First Ladies Roundtable, which is a critical achievement again, because that is a very strong constituency. So every time we would have the COMESA Heads of State Summit, during the time that I worked in COMESA, we would work with the First Ladies to create awareness about the gender issues, socio-economic issues. How we would always have a community of the First Ladies Roundtable. This is something else that is ongoing, and I feel very good about it. It's really wonderful.
So you're successful, without a doubt. So how do you actually define success?
For me, it's when I have been involved in initiating certain things. I may not take credit alone because you never do these things alone with colleagues and partners, but you have been at the forefront of, spearheading the process, and it works. I am gone, now I'm in FEMCOM. There's a gender policy, it is being implemented. Before I left in COMESA, we came up with a COMESA Gender Policy Implementation Action Plan. So the director of gender today is implementing it, and she's my best friend. And we are working together. That makes me good. I feel very good about it. There is the First Ladies constituency that every year they meet, they continue. I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of that. Even at the level where I started initiatives in my own country, where I worked with the ladies, they are my best friends. They have done so well. They have, the women in business that I was able to help when I was in the bank. I just feel so good about seeing people succeed. That makes me very happy about it.
So how would you define leadership?
I think leadership is when you are playing a role that clearly assists in terms of making impact. Let me give you an example. Let me use my current president in Kenya, honestly, because we can see the roads, the infrastructure development in Kenya is there. There's no question about it. And everybody is talking about it at all corners. Because you want to move smoothly. That is something that is there. Just an example, that anybody, it's irrespective of who, everybody, whether you are riding a bike, or you're using a car, or whether you're walking, there is some infrastructure. That is leadership. To me, that is leadership. Again, when, for instance, you have got like that gender policy, which any person can use, any younger women can use to say, hey, you're not implementing this. That's leadership. Like the constitution that is there, that has given women a lot of confidence. That's leadership.
So what would be the three most powerful pieces of advice that you could give to another woman who is starting an initiative or a project or leading a team?
I think what I would do is say that whenever you're starting something, you don't start it for you. No. The moment you want to say that, because you can just get all the money, you're getting the money, put up those, like the apartments I'm putting up, and just want to be rich and that's it. I consider that a very selfish approach myself, because I'll have all the money that I have, but I have not made a difference. So for me, anybody who would like to make an impact is to ensure that whatever you do in life, make a difference to uplift the life of somebody, whether they are through policies or whether through some contribution of some kind, for me, or training or anything. Make sure somebody, somewhere, has actually can say that, oh, at least I have benefited. They don't have to tell you. They don't have to tell you, but that's your satisfaction.
So that would be one. What would two other pieces of advice be?
The other advice that I would like to give the women is always networking. Networking, because you offload your problems. You may think you know too much. Then occasionally I call my women and say, please, can you do a critique on me? Tell me who I am. Tell me the truth about the Katherine Ichoya you think I am.
That's tough.
It is tough. It's very painful, but it is very helpful, because you don't want to live a lie. You may be walking just thinking you are who you are not. That's very important also. But I also think internally, for me, I'm a very spiritual person. My self-satisfaction, my faculty, the mere fact that I know I'm doing the right thing. When I pray in the morning, I wake up, I always say, I put my first leg out, then the second one. I say, God help me to do good. I want to do good. I want to think positive. I don't like to revenge. That is an honor to me. I want to look for a solution where I can be able to look for a solution. That makes the world for me.
So what is next for you?
Very challenging. Here I am. I have given myself about 1 year there. And I have this huge monster, which is FEMCOM, to make sure that I can be able to establish. The challenge for me is to build enough critical mass among the women in business to carry this forward for that period. That is a challenge. It's something that is bothering me, because I don't like to be associated with failure. People fail, I'll fail here and there, but even if it's something that I'll do to make sure that incrementally it will take off, this is it. So this is one thing that is. And then you see the biggest challenge is, what do I do after I am out of FEMCOM? Very interesting. This, I'm also beginning to put up my feelers. One, I have accumulated enormous knowledge. I want to share that. I really want to share that especially with the youth. I want to work with the young women to make sure that I can share the experiences. I can facilitate linkages and networks. Again, I already have my women's friends at the regional and international level. I do have them. And we have agreed that we are going to continue working together, so that occasionally, because you want to travel occasionally, when they want to come to Kenya, they know that I'm here. This is something we are working on. I have a very dear colleague of mine who is now an ambassador in Washington, D.C. She's from Zambia. And we were saying with Sheila, and another friend of mine who is now the Deputy UNDP resident rep in Zambia again, from Sierra Leone, and others. I have a dear friend from Regina Madi from Nigeria. She's in my head. And so many others. They are the women, a women constituency in the region that I'm working with, and also the women in Kenya here. I have a team. I'm not alone. That makes me good. So when I even heard about you, I said, oh my God, I'm going to have another network somewhere else, because I plan to do that.
So I'm just going to ask you some quick questions just to wrap things up and put you in a sort of a reflective mindset. And if you had a 10-year-old daughter. In a short, sort of succinct way, what advice would you give to her?
I think if I had a 10-year-old daughter, and you should have asked me, do I have a daughter? And what did I do with her when she was young? One of the things I did was to provide exposure to our children. And for my daughter, I made sure that I even started to travel with her to expose her, even going for conferences with her. And I thank God because she's really done so well. And and to even tell them that they need to begin to be international citizens, not just Kenyan citizens. Well, her husband is American, and I don't see it as like she has gone there. For me, it's a global village. I don't see barriers, and that has helped me a lot because I don't suffer from problems that we have here, tribal, that somebody comes from. Those are non-starters as far as I'm concerned. So it's to make sure that we bring this child to belong to the world. 10-year-old, prepare them to think big, think world, think responsibility, think support system, think have to have self-confidence, send them occasionally, let them, because anything can happen, you may not be there tomorrow. So the way we have trained our daughter is that she can still survive without us.
So what would be the one thing that you wish your mother told you when you were 10 years old?
My mother, when I was 10 years old, is that I can make it and the sky is the limit. Go for it.
That's what she said, or that's what you would like her to have said?
That's what I would like to tell them. Go for it. The world is there for you. Don't worry. Don't think about it. There's no discrimination. Go for it. It's only you who can make you. That's crucial. Yes.
So what words of wisdom would you give to the women of Africa?
First, the word of wisdom I would give to the women of Africa is that we must, as women of Africa, support one another. Because men have used us to fight one another. It doesn't matter at what level. We must work together.
I think that's a very, very powerful message.
Absolutely.
And the one we're going to leave with today.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Katherine. It's been wonderful, wonderful getting to know you, and I know we're going to have many more conversations.
I look forward.
Yes, I do too. Because as we talk about working with the African Businesswomen Connected Summit and taking place in Ethiopia, and again, Wisdom Exchange TV does very much support that initiative. So I want to thank Katherine because FEMCOM, we hope to work very closely on that initiative. One of the suggestions I have for you is make sure you subscribe to wisdomexchangetv.com so that you receive a heads up on each one of our interviews. We try to have a minimum of 2 a month, but we will invite you to each interview, and they air on Tuesdays. So please do subscribe. As well as I want to thank my husband, is also the co-producer of Wisdom Exchange TV, Michael Ginrich, and he's operating the camera. And Michael and I are traveling through Africa, interviewing women like Katherine. So if you know someone who is a leader, a trailblazer, like Katherine is, please send their name to wisdomexchangetv.com, and we'll research them and see if they're the type of woman that we'd want to profile on Wisdom Exchange TV. As Mike and I are traveling all through Africa, so please don't be limited by the country or the urban or rural area. We appreciate it. And I just want to leave you with my words of wisdom. Push your edge to your personal and professional potential. From backpack, which is everyday living, to briefcase, to career success, and ultimately to boardroom, where as a woman, you really can make a difference. And as Katherine said, live with integrity. Because in the boardroom, that's where it really will matter. Thank you.